Okay, everybody, welcome. On the show today, the Expect Better podcast, Maria Conlon. How's it going, Maria?
It's great. Thanks for having me on.
My
Glad to be
pleasure.
here.
You know, I strategically made this show with you to be after the NCAA championship game last night. That didn't work out the way I was hoping it would. I wanted to talk about a UConn win, but either way, I appreciate you coming in, and I know you're super busy. We're going to talk a little bit about your life and your resume and all your accomplishments today. UConn obviously being a part of that journey that you've been on. But appreciate you coming in and definitely taking the time to listen to what we have to say today.
Absolutely. I'm happy to be here.
All right. So, Maria, you're currently the Notre Dame High School basketball girls coach, head coach.
I am.
Coming off a huge win.
Yep, state championship. 2 weeks ago now.
2 weeks.
I think, right?
I also strategically placed it to be
after that.
After that also.
No pressure, right?
You know, I wanted to ask you about 3 months ago when I started. So take us through that journey through Notre Dame High School in Fairfield. And, you actually, if you go back a couple of years, you were hired at the beginning of COVID?
Yeah, right before COVID. So November, right before COVID.
Mm-hmm.
We were number one in the state, undefeated in state. When COVID happened, we were 2 games away from the state championship. So definitely a heartbreak. And then obviously we spent the next year and a half going through turbulent times and unexpected situations. My second year, we again, were number one and went undefeated, but no postseason due to COVID.
So 2 years in a row, year one and year two.
Yep.
You replaced Coach Eric DeMarco.
Yes.
Right, very successful coach.
Great coach, good friend of mine.
Yeah.
One
you
of
guys
my
keep in
mentors.
Touch?
We do. And I know you just sold him a house out in Arizona.
Yes.
So nice job there.
Yeah, it's all about relationships.
Yeah, he's been traveling around, with his wife, and I think, he was a well-respected teacher and coach for many years. So happy to see him.
At Seymour?
At Seymour. He was a teacher there and actually played for him for 2 years in high school at Seymour. So it's good to see him get out and get to enjoy life a little bit.
Did you have him in the classroom?
I did.
Okay, what was that like?
It was, I got to tell you, he's a phenomenal coach.
Mm-hmm.
It's a toss-up for me on what he's better at, teaching or coaching. He's a phenomenal teacher. I had him for honors Western Civ freshman year, and then I had him for psychology my senior year. And if you have ever played for him, you could totally appreciate the fact and understand why he does what he does from a psychology teacher standpoint. It's almost like he knows the brain and how to talk and how to, maneuver different situations.
Well, he's a smart guy. He's an intellect.
Brilliant.
There's
yeah.
no doubt.
Yep.
And he transferred that onto the court, I think, with his players. And smart basketball players make it farther, I think, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Fair to say. So get back to Notre Dame and Fairfield. So now you have an inkling that they're going to have state playoffs.
Yep.
And you started the year, were you ranked number one in the state at the beginning of the year?
We were preseason number one.
Preseason?
Yep.
Did you drop at all during the year?
We did once. I intentionally this year made sure that we had a really tough schedule. I wanted us to go down and play out of state, down to New Jersey, which we did early on. We ended up last second getting a little bait and switch. We were supposed to play one team, which was pretty evenly matched based off of us. And we ended up, that team got COVID. So I got the call the night before.
A lot of that happened, right?
Yeah. The team you're supposed to play tomorrow can't play you anymore, but we have another opponent for you. And I'm like, okay, great. And they're like, but it's Cardinal O'Hara out of Pennsylvania, which is like a perennial national powerhouse.
Oh.
One of the best schools in all of Pennsylvania. So you could either just not play the game or play them. And I said, yeah, whatever, we're going to play them. It can't hurt us. It's only going to help us in the long run.
Mm-hmm.
So we played them, and I don't even think if they dribbled, it was like a shock. I mean, they were like pass cut. It was like Princeton back in the day, and they're already at the rim. So it was a little shell shock for us and our kids going down there. And then we played the second game against a really good Immaculate Conception team that I think finished third in all of New Jersey this year.
Okay.
And I think we lost by 7 or 8 and battled them pretty good. So,
wow. So this team was special. You had an incredible group of seniors.
Yep. That will be missed. And I would say, like, the interesting part for us this year is even all the way up into the state championship game, we did not play one game all season with a full roster.
Oh, wow.
All of our kids were active and were playing. So we dealt with
injuries,
COVID quarantines.
Oh, that's right.
I had one kid with a broken nose for the first month and a half of the year, and we're waiting for the face mask to get fitted, and all the back orders of the her face mask, I think, was caught on a boat for about
China?
3-4. Yeah, who knows, something like that, something crazy. Rowan Houston, she was the one. Yeah.
Okay.
So so we missed her for the first month and a half, and then we
Ugh.
go into the state championship game, and Kayla Tillis, one of our seniors, 3 minutes left, messes up her foot, doesn't play the whole second half. So, but I think all of those things really helped us because we were so used to playing through unpredicted times and overcoming adversity, constantly, whether it was foul trouble or any of that. So, it worked out in the end.
So Kayla, Sarah, Neek, right? Those are your superstars. All three made All-State, I saw.
All three made first team All-State.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That doesn't happen a lot, right?
It does not. And then we had Taylor Gibbs, who, who would probably be one of the top players on
any team
out there as well.
Yeah, she had a great season.
Yeah, she did.
And how about coming up, youth? What are you looking like for next year? You have some good youth players returning?
Yeah, we do. I think, next year will be interesting. I think a lot of people will count us out because we're graduating a lot.
Yeah.
But we have a lot of really young talent. We had a great, sophomore class. We have a really big sophomore class this year. And I think for us, like a lot of what I dealt with this year, one of my main issues was how do I get all these kids playing time every game?
Yeah.
So, I think that we'll be a little bit of a different style next year.
Love it.
But we'll be, just as good.
Yeah, and you have, obviously, the phones are ringing at Notre Dame. People want to play for you, which is awesome. Now, is Notre Dame your first high school head coaching position?
First high school head coaching, correct.
Okay. What experience did you have prior to Notre Dame?
So after I was done playing at UConn, I stayed on for a year as a grad assistant under UConn or under Gino and Chris Daly. So
under
I did
the
that.
Gino Auriemma.
The Gino Auriemma.
The Gino.
Yep. So I did that. Then I went and played professionally overseas for a couple of years. And then I came back and I took the assistant coaching job at Southern Connecticut under Joe Frager and Laura Cinto, where in 2007 we won the Division II
National Championship.
Yep.
I saw that also.
And then I actually he took the job at Fairfield that following year. And at that point, I actually went into real estate, ironically.
Yeah.
And so I got
tell us
into coaching.
about that. That's awesome.
Yeah, so did real estate for a year or two and then stumbled into the finance world, which is, where I've been since 2008. Yeah, so I coached with Joe Frager, did color for the Fairfield Stags for a couple of years. And then I think it was back in 2016 or 17, Eric DeMarco asked me to come and be an assistant for him at Notre Dame. I did that for 2 seasons.
Oh, so Eric brought you in.
Eric brought me into Notre Dame, and then so I was with him for 2 seasons. I took a year off because I opened up a gym and a couple other businesses, and then that's when he retired. And actually, Rob Bledgy, who was the athletic director at the time, gave me a call and asked me if I'd be interested. So
awesome. The rest is history.
The rest is history.
There you go. So your resume is super impressive. We were texting over the weekend. You're like, what do you want me to tell you? And actually, I shouldn't even had to have you do that because there's so much stuff out there. I'm going to tell you about, tell our watchers some of your accomplishments, and feel free to jump in and throw or correct me if something's incorrect because it's on the internet, so it's not always true. But you currently, you went to Seymour High School. You lived in Derby, though, right? So I saw somewhere you actually, what made you want to play for Seymour over Derby? I think I know the answer, but what do you think?
From an athletic standpoint, I actually was looking at Sacred Heart Academy, St. Joe's, Laurelton Hall, and I wasn't really vibing with any of that. I had gone to a Catholic grammar school my whole life. And
did you go to St. Mary's?
I went to St. Mary's, St. Michael's, which is where my daughter goes now.
Awesome.
Back then, we didn't have a girls' team, so I played with the boys all the way through 8th grade. And so my dad actually had heard about Joe Frager over at Seymour, and Eric DeMarco was his assistant there at the time. So it's funny how everything comes around a little bit full circle. But he said, we should go check out this program. And I remember going to watch them play. And the first game I went to watch, the final score was 32-28. And I was like, this is all the points they're going to score, Dad? I can't play for the school.
Yeah, no.
So I went back and watched again, and I was really blown away by their style and how Coach Frager interacted with his players. So I went and played there. My parents paid tuition for me to go to a public school because it was out of town.
Yeah, that's wild, right?
I could have done I guess they could have done the whole, she lives with her aunt who lives in Seymour, but if somebody investigated it, it's not worth it,
It's easier to just pay.
Just be honest and pay.
Yeah, I like that. That's cool. So some of the stuff that I had found, I don't know if people know this or if you, hopefully they do. If they don't, I'm going to tell them. You have the record currently, and maybe some of this has changed, but for most three-pointers made in a season in Connecticut for girls basketball, most three-pointers in a game.
Yep.
Most three-pointers in a career.
Correct.
Yep. And how about assists, steals, and points?
So I'm the all-time leader in all of those at Seymour High School. I don't think in the state.
Okay,
but
awesome.
yeah,
But at Seymour High,
at Seymour High.
that's no small feat.
No,
That's awesome.
definitely
Yeah,
not.
that's incredible. And then I just have that you coached at Southern. We just talked about that. You won the Division II national championship, which is incredible. You're being a graduate assistant under Gino Ariema. What was that like? You must have learned, some serious coaching, techniques back then.
I wish I was a grad assistant like the year before I played for him for the first year and learned all the.
Yeah, right.
I always laugh now, and it's like if you knew then what you know now.
Mhm.
But I learned a ton, just on, what he does behind the scenes, and his assistant coaches do behind the scenes to prepare for practice, to prepare for games, and
Yeah.
just kind of how he works to get the best out of everybody that plays for him.
So my high school coach, Gary Palladino, was just in here last week. Would say it's you win championships in the off season.
Yeah,
Say that's true.
absolutely. I get a lot of parents that say, how can my kids, like, it's the middle of the season, how can my kids get more playing time? And sometimes you don't have the heart to tell them. It's like,
Yeah.
Right now is when we work on team stuff.
Yeah.
Like, you get individually better in the off season, which helps us win the championship during the season. So
Yeah, totally.
really important.
Yeah, it's kind of not that the ship has sailed. Anybody can get better and earn their right on the court, but it's really what you do in the off season that translates to the court and the playing time. So you won 3 national championships playing at UConn. Was that 2001?
2002, 3, 4.
2002, 3, and 4.
Yep.
You also won 4 Big East regular season titles.
Correct.
That's,
Yep.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
What was that experience just like? I mean, winning on that level.
Yeah, I mean, when you go to UConn, and especially now, it's like if you don't do those things, it's like a failure of a season, right? So because they expect you to win every single year, but back then it wasn't necessarily to that point yet. My freshman year, we probably had the most talented team out of all my teams there, and we lost in the national semifinal to Notre Dame. Sophomore year, we come out, probably have the best starting 5 to ever be assembled in Diana Taurasi, Sue Bird, Swin Cash, Asia Jones, and Tamika Williams. And then
Is that the greatest UConn starting 5 ever?
I would
Go
put
on the
those
record,
starting 5 against any other starting 5 from a culmination of years. Like, obviously you could maybe pull one player off and put another player on, but that played together and actually did start. I mean, there's not a better backcourt, I'll tell you that.
Yeah. Well, yeah, totally. I read somewhere too. Did you was there a situation? Did you lock Diana Taurasi in a bathroom somewhere, or do you know there's an article out there?
I locked her in a bathroom.
Maybe you and a teammate locked her in a bathroom or something when she was
Probably
a
the other way
freshman?
around. Yeah, I mean, she was my roommate, so that wouldn't have been me. It probably would have been an
There's
upperclassman
crazy
locking her in
stuff
there.
out there on the
Yeah,
internet.
people like to make stuff up too. It's like,
Oh
I
my
hear
gosh.
stories even now. Like, maybe this is just a sports thing, but I hear stories from before, and I'm like, I remember that very, very differently. People like to
I'm sure.
twist and turn things
Yeah.
to their narrative over the years.
The truth's usually somewhere in the middle.
Yeah,
depending
who
on
knows?
Yeah. What do you win when you win the Big East and you win a national title in women's basketball? What do you win? What do you get? You get money? Can't give you money, right?
Kidding me? Now they probably do with this whole NIL thing. You get a ring. You get maybe some shoes.
Nice ring?
Gear. Yeah, you get a nice ring.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Is that paid for by the university? Do you know, or
Yes,
the university
correct.
does that?
Yep.
They should pay you guys.
Well, they do pay them now.
No. Yeah.
So
They should have paid you.
yeah.
That would have been nice.
That would have been great.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I mean, and I'm always torn with that. Like, I get asked that question all the time. And I mean, we did kind of get paid, right? We got our college tuition paid for. We got room and board and food and things of that nature. So I got a free education. So
let me ask you, what drew you to UConn? I mean, you talked about the tradition of winning. Was that at the beginning of the major UConn women's runs?
yeah, because my sophomore year would have been their 3rd national championship, and now they got 11. So,
Right.
Yeah.
So what draws somebody to UConn? I'm always envious of this, and I actually was recruited to go to UConn for track and field, right? So I didn't. It's farmland, right?
I don't think you're going there for the flashy campus,
right.
Although if you go up there now, it's like a metropolis. It's
Oh, yeah.
totally different.
Totally different now. But in
than when I was,
2000,
yeah.
in 2000, because you were recruited, and jump in and add any more, but I caught Penn State was on you, Rutgers was on you, Boston College.
Yep.
Yes. So what draws you? And if you go to Boston College or Rutgers or Penn State, though it's metropolis, right? So
Yep.
why do you choose? What makes you choose UConn in Storrs, Connecticut, over those places?
Well, and I think that this is a common pattern that you'll see with kids that go to UConn in general is that, you can make a decision. I feel like you can go and potentially be the best player or a leading scorer on a ton of other programs across the country. Or you can go somewhere where you can have the opportunity to play for a national championship every year. And I think there's two types of kids out there that get recruited. You're either that kid that cares more about the overall team winning, or you have that kid that cares more about individual, accolades. And I wanted an opportunity to win. That's really all that mattered to me.
You wanted the ring. Did you know when you committed, did you know who else was already committed to UConn at that point?
So I'm trying to think of who committed before me. I believe Morgan Valley and Jessica Moore were already committed, then myself, and then actually after that was Diana Taurasi, and then the fifth person to commit for our class was Ashley Battle. So it was the five of us that came in together.
Gotcha.
That were freshmen together.
Gotcha. And so you roomed with Diana Taurasi?
Yeah. So, freshman year, Ashley Battle and I were roommates. And then sophomore year, junior, senior year, we all lived together, the five of us.
Oh, nice.
And yeah.
Off campus, on campus?
On campus. Okay. On campus in an apartment. Yeah.
Those are great memories, right?
Yeah, there's a lot of memories there.
And you guys still talk? I can picture you guys having a group chat.
Yeah.
You guys have a group chat?
Yeah, we do. It's called Nickel Night.
Nickel Night.
Yeah, because we joke that back then the Civic Pub or all those places on campus had you don't see that anymore. Like where you can go somewhere and get a beer for a nickel. It doesn't happen. But
so Nickel Night.
That's the name of our group chat, and it's
awesome.
It's the five of us. Ashley Valley, who's Morgan's younger sister, who was a year younger than us, and Sue Bird. So it's us seven on that group chat, and then I have like 2 or 3 other random group chats from college with other people. So.
And how often do you say you guys talk?
Within the group chat, probably 4 or 5 times a week. There's something happening.
That's awesome.
At this time of year, probably a little bit more. Like last night, the group chat was constantly going off, and Sue and Dee had their own show during the game last night, so you can go on ESPN2 and you can watch them kind of commentate.
That's awesome.
So we were going back and forth with them a little bit.
Group chats dominate our worlds now. It's crazy. I can't even keep. I have a couple I have to put on like silence.
Group chat for me is tough because like for example, I'll be at practice for 2 hours. During that 2 hours,
100 notifications.
I'll look at my phone and I have like 212 text messages.
And you start to twitch a little bit.
And the sad part is like I don't have time to now scroll all the way up to catch up.
Yeah, so you just whatever.
So it's like give me the cliff notes. What did I miss? Like So I'm not a big group chat person, but that is one of the ones that I will partake in.
Yeah, that's good. Well, I probably would too if I had that kind of success. And you obviously have groupies, followers. My grandmother was a huge fan. I actually tried to get her here this morning, but she's babysitting.
Yeah.
You guys have people that UConn women's basketball. They don't miss a game. They love to hear that. So I'm hopeful that this show today will let some people hear about what you're doing in your life now. Obviously, you did play professional basketball. We'll talk a little bit about that. But after the playing career, you have to get a big boy, big girl job, and you've been super successful with basically everything you put your hands on. So if you can motivate other people and inspire them, that's really part of our job and our roles now as we grow.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's really what motivated me a lot to get back into coaching is to really, I think that
not the money.
Not the money. That's a good one, right?
Yeah.
Definitely not the money
Definitely
in order to go become a high school coach. But, for me, the reward I think that especially on the women's side, we need more women that are willing to give back and coach and just be a more positive influence in the community.
Yeah, I love it. And before I switch to the playing career professionally, also did want to note that you did win the Gatorade Player of the Year your senior year in high school, right?
Correct.
All right, that's an awesome accomplishment.
Yep.
And so congrats on that. So playing professionally, again through digging online, Iceland and Germany. Did you play? Is that 2 separate things, or so? Tell us what that's like.
Yeah, so the overseas thing is really, really interesting, and again, it's probably way different now than it was, back in 2005 when I first went over there. Mm-hmm. But it's literally like the movie Love and Basketball. Like you go there, and you're 1 or 2 Americans on each team. No one else really speaks any English. The coach barely speaks any English, and like
how do you communicate?
One person translate. It was really tough. In Germany especially, Iceland was a little bit more Americanized, where there they speak much better English. But in Germany,
was it the same league, 2 teams, or how?
So each country has their own league.
Oh, okay.
And then you have the Euro League, which is competes within, and the top team in each country compete in the Euro League. So in Germany, I traveled all throughout Germany. And I remember getting picked up at the airport and like we hop on the Autobahn, and I had just taken a red eye, and it was like a crazy experience to jump on the Autobahn.
Yeah.
But from a cultural standpoint, like you learn so much about yourself when you're thrown into a situation that's completely unfamiliar.
Hmm.
You have to figure things out. You don't understand as easily what people are saying. And then the basketball world is a little different. It's a little faster. Shot clock's 24 seconds versus 30 in college.
Hmm.
And it's a little bit more physical
Oh,
overseas.
sure.
So, just different, but overall, really great experience.
So, were they allowed to recruit you while you were playing at UConn?
No, so back then you couldn't. Like, again, a lot of this NIL and everything's really changed the dynamic of that. But you couldn't even talk to an agent or anything until you had officially graduated or
So not
played your last
played
game.
your last game.
Yeah.
So is that what you go? So you win a national championship in your senior year, and then does Iceland and Germany teams just start blowing up your phone? Or?
No, so what happens is the agents, right? So
Okay.
like if, all these kids that go to graduate, they'll have a bunch of agents that will try to, basically sign contracts, and the agents are the ones that go and,
The
and
bloodhounds.
yeah, yeah,
Bloodhounds.
those agents, you know how that is,
I
right?
know they're bloodhounds.
Yeah.
They go after. They don't want to leave a dollar on the
Yeah, of
table.
course.
Wow. So you go over there now. At that time, could you live on that type of salary, or I'm assuming they paid? Did they pay?
Yeah, and while you're there, they pay for your lodging, your food, and everything while you're there is pretty much paid for, and then you get paid on top of that.
Okay.
I mean, it's nothing like
Yeah.
a real job here.
Right.
Now I think it's progressed where women are getting paid much more. And,
Yeah.
if you're someone like a Diana Taurasi, you're probably making buco bucks. They actually make more overseas than they do here
Right.
domestically, which is kind of sad, and hopefully
Yeah.
that'll change at some point in the future.
So the WNBA is not caught up yet with overseas in terms of salaries.
No, definitely not.
Why do you think?
I have my thoughts, and I think there's some mixed reviews on that. I
Mm-hmm.
think that, overseas, they do a really good job of sponsorships, of having different companies and people really buy into that. And it's really all they have out there. So if you go, I played for a town, and it's called Göttingen, Germany,
Mhm.
where there's a university there, and it's about an hour north of Frankfurt. And that's all there is there. So they kind of gravitate towards that.
Yeah, it's a
and
big deal
the
there.
town kind of
It's like
owns it.
soccer in Italy, right? Like,
Yeah, where like here in the United States, the WNBA plays in the summer, and some people probably will say, "Well, I'd rather be at the beach than be in the arena watching a girls' basketball game." So
fair enough. Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, so they don't prioritize it probably as much here.
I don't think the fan base is, there's not as much money being brought in for the sport here
Right.
as there is in comparison to like an NBA or anything like that.
So what would you say playing under Gino Auriemma, what did you take from that experience that has transformed into your life and coaching now?
Yeah, I mean, a bunch of things, right? I can give you a laundry list of things, but, some of the ones that I always like to highlight when somebody asks me that is, I think he's unbelievable at getting the most out of every single kid, figuring out which buttons to push. Like, you can't coach every kid the same way. The way you can yell at one kid, maybe you can't to the other.
Mhm.
So I think he was really, really great at that, and really, motivating his kids to uphold a certain standard. So if you watch them play, they all look the same. All their shirts are tucked in. They're not, one kid's not wearing their uniform one way and the
Need
other
more
one
of that.
isn't. Yeah, I mean, it's very streamlined. You don't see them getting off the bus with their headphones on. Like, that's some stuff that
Yeah.
we know from behind the scenes we were never allowed to do. But I think it's the little things. And, I try to preach that a lot at Notre Dame. Like, our girls would get mad at me because I'd say, like, tuck your shirts in.
Mm-hmm.
But it's the little things, the consistency, and making sure those little things are being taken care of that end up adding to the big things, right? Like, if you're not going to take pride in the fact that I want you to tuck your shirt in and look appropriate for the game, you're probably not going to dive on the ground for the loose ball either.
Yeah, or listen to something else that you tell them to do.
Yeah, so it's it's buying into the whole experience, and I think that him and his coaching staff have been traditionally really great at that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they have to buy into that because kids having a bad day, you tell them to tuck their shirt in, they storm out. You can't. That's gonna create problems. That type of player, I would think,
Yep.
down the road. How would you describe your coaching style?
I try to take a little bit of all the different coaches or mentors or leaders that I've had over the years. I think that I would describe me as tough but a little laid back. Like, I think my kids know that I'm not messing around, but I think they also know that I really care.
Yeah.
And that's important to me. I'm not a big yeller. You know, I watch some of these other coaches that are going crazy during the game. If I'm going to yell, it's going to be in private. It's not really ever going to be in public. And I'm really big on that, especially with the dynamic of this generation. I just don't think that it goes very far. You know, and I'm very inclusive, right? Like I want my team to all like each other, like to feel like this is a family, like people have your back because you're part of this program. You know, like for example, this year we had an incident early in the season where I felt like our team chemistry wasn't great. So we had a practice and we ran a lot that practice. And one of the things I did was like I lined them up on the sideline and I asked one of my upperclassmen what one of our underclassmen's last names was. I didn't know the answer. I said, great, we're going to run 16. And then we stopped again and I asked one of my other upperclassmen, like, what's this one's last name? And they didn't know. So like
I love
sprint
that.
16. And, you know, I think at that point, and I assigned all of them with mentees. So like our upperclassmen each had a mentee.
Love it.
And I really feel like after that, the team chemistry and the dynamic really started to change. Like it was more of a, we are really all family. We all should have each other's back. And, you know, we're talking about group chats. It was actually kind of funny. It was the day after I did that at practice. And one of my seniors, I won't say her name, didn't realize I was on the group thread and said in the group, like somebody said something about practice, like, oh yeah, it's at such and such a time. And so the other senior said, who is this? Because they didn't have their number saved in the phone. And the person said their first name, it's so-and-so. And she said, last names too, y'all. We got to know all of these moving forward.
Love it.
You know, so everybody started laughing. But like,
so they bought in.
They bought in. And like some of the texts that I got like at the end of the season, you know, from some of the kids that didn't even play that much, from the experience that they had was like, okay, this is why I'm into coaching. Like this is it. Like these kids will remember this experience forever.
Yeah. Well, you're not always going to win the state championship, right?
No, and I don't even think that necessarily, like, listen, everybody wants a storybook ending. But I don't even know, like, I feel like all of them would have felt the same way had we lost that game, you know? It was just this sense of, like, we genuinely missed each other once it was over. Like, even now, like, every once in a while I'll be in the group thread and, like, one of them would be like, I miss you guys and I miss you, coach. Like,
I see you on social media doing that.
Yeah.
You put up a couple cool posts.
Yeah, and it's like you genuinely like miss their company and miss showing up to practice. And even though those 2 hours can be really, really hard, they're always worth it. And so that's, you know, getting back to your original question of like, what's my style? I think that's what I've tried to create at Notre Dame, which is why I think it's a great fit for me, is because I feel like the school is also like that a lot. Like it's blue collar, like
totally.
Anyone who's graduated from there always says, oh, I love my experience there.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like a microcosm of like this big thing that we have there.
Yeah, I agree. So are you a mix between Joe, Eric, and Gino?
Probably.
Well, that's cool.
Yeah, like I would think so. And like, you know, you throw a little bit of like my grandparents in there, and like my parents, and you know, some of my teammates, because you know, like Shay Ralph was a senior when I was a freshman, and she took me underneath her wing and like was a huge part of like my development as a person and as a player. So I feel like I used some of that as well. Or Tanya Cardoza, who was my assistant. Like I think if you're not taking bits and pieces of everyone who's impacted your life, both negatively and positively, right? Because I'll say some of my coaches that I learned the most from, I couldn't stand, right? But like, and sometimes you learn how you don't want to be, which is in a lot of ways even more important than learning how you do want to be. So, you know, I really hated that this coach did this or made me feel like this or treated my teammates like this. I never want to do that. You know, so I try to take a little bit of all of that.
Yeah, it's awesome. So we're going to go back a little now. You mentioned growing up and going to Seymour from living in Derby. Let's go back even further. What are your earliest memories of growing up, you know, parents, family? Do you have siblings? Tell us what that looked like for you.
Yeah, so I have a younger brother, just one sibling, but I have...
Is he local?
He's local. He's actually a Derby cop. So,
okay.
Yeah, I see him pretty frequently. He's actually a part of the tasting lounge that I'm opening.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, so he's a partner on that. And I have 30 first cousins on my dad's side of the family.
Okay.
And I grew up right next door to them. So there's a 3-family house on Olivia Street in Derby.
Okay.
And we grew up in the house next door. Yeah. And they were all boys that lived next door. So I
Okay.
had, a ton of male cousins. And my dad, once he realized that I was really into basketball, he actually built like a half court in our backyard. And if you've ever been in Derby, especially where I lived in Derby,
Hmm.
on the west side, as we call it, there's not a lot to the backyards. Like they're
Yeah.
pretty small and they're pretty
Yeah.
compact.
I've
I
sold
could
on
take
Olivia Street.
yeah, you could
I
take a
know it.
broom out the window and probably hit my grandparents' house
Yeah.
next door. So he built an entire half court right in my backyard. And, my cousins would come out there and play with me constantly growing up. And, I'd get bumped into the fence a lot, but I think it made me tougher.
Yeah.
And that's really how I grew up, was with that dynamic.
And what did your dad do for work?
He was in sales his whole life.
Okay.
Yeah. So makes sense. I'm in sales in a lot of
There you
different
go.
ways now. Yeah.
Mom work? Was mom
Works,
home?
yep. So she's been in healthcare her entire life. So, working for doctors and office manager and doing, administrative work that way.
Awesome. And so you were beating up on the boys on the court on Olivia Street, right?
Yep.
Your cousins, one-on-ones. What are you playing, 3-on-3s? What did that look
A
like?
lot of 2-on-2s. We had a lot of 2-on-2 tournaments.
The court was probably only so
yeah,
big,
like,
right?
like Memorial Day was always a big one. We would host, like, my cousins next door always had this big picnic. And one of their best friends, Chris Anderson, who has been a perennial football coach in the state for years. I think he's at Oxford now. He would, create all the teams, and he'd take a nail and he'd, nail in all the rules and everything, and then he'd always draft me on his team. So it'd always be me and him.
Okay.
But tough as nails, and
Yeah.
again, like blue collar, gritty. That's the way that they played, and I kind of adapted that from a really young age.
What age would you say was it that you started really, like figuring out that basketball could be a ticket for you somewhere?
10, 11 years old.
10, 11. So that's 6th grade, middle school, or?
Fifth grade, yeah.
Fifth
So, I'm a little young for my grade. I'm a November baby. So, I would say like 10 years old was the first year that I played AAU in the summer.
Mhm.
And I played up on the 11-year-old team. And I did really, really well. And it's weird, like I'll do clinics and stuff now. And I don't ever remember being like bad, like really bad at basketball. I think it just was just natural for me. Like when I picked up a ball and, and I joke around now because obviously I have a 10-year-old daughter, and like she expects to be as good as I am now at her age. She doesn't understand that like there's hours and hours of work to go in. But for me, basketball was just always this really cool outlet. So, if I had something going on or something was on my mind or I didn't have a good day, like to me it was take to the court.
Yeah.
Like I could just shoot for hours. And when I'm shooting and I'm playing, even now, like if I have some stuff going on, I'll go pick up a ball and I'll shoot for an hour. And
You practice
block
with your
everything
girls,
out.
right?
Yeah, I
There's
get
some
in there a
video.
little
There's some
bit.
video out there. You
Yeah,
practice?
I can still shoot a little
still
bit.
shoot?
I think they laugh a little bit about that.
I love that though. That's great that they could see you actually out there. And
Yeah.
so you were talking about your daughter. Tell us about her.
Yeah, so she's 10. She goes to St. Mary St. Michael's. Feel a little bad for her because she got kind of caught in that COVID the last 2 years.
Yeah.
So, typically you can start playing at like 8 years old in some different leagues, but the last 2 years they didn't have them. So this year was her first year, really playing an organized basketball. And she played on a rec team. She played on the school team. She's got a great touch. She's starting to get it. But I would say like her age is kind of like 2 years behind from the organized basketball world. So that's been a little tough because, again, she loves it. But it's not like the old days. It's not, when I was younger, I would just go out into the backyard and I'd shoot for 2-3 hours or go to the courts and play for 2-3 hours. And that's not, that doesn't really exist right now.
Yeah.
So, she'll play AAU this summer and I'll try to get her into as much as possible. But she comes to practice a lot with me.
I know. That's awesome that you bring her to the practice and she does the drills and stuff.
Yep, she hops in. She loves it. So, that's been really great for her development, and the girls are great with her. So, that's been a really positive experience in regards to coaching.
And they have a team at St. Mary's? Or?
Yeah, they do. Now they have a girls team.
Okay.
So they have like a junior varsity team and a varsity team. So she played on that this year.
They're trying to get you to coach that too?
Oh, yeah. With all my free time, I
yeah,
always
right?
say.
Yeah.
I actually just ran a clinic for them this past Saturday. They're trying to raise some money for some new school uniforms.
That's awesome.
So, yeah,
That's
I ran
great.
that. And, anytime I can give back, like I'm really big on always give more than you receive.
Yeah.
So I do a lot of that stuff in the community as well.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Any other family members that you think had an impact on your growth as a player and as a person, or?
Yeah. I mean, all my cousins, I would say, obviously my parents have been great in supporting me over the years. My brother, I always say, like, he got dragged to all the AAU practices
Yeah.
and all the tournaments. And, I have so many different people, my cousin's friends and, different guys that would play with me or feed me the ball or kind of just help with my passion while I was growing up that I'm super thankful for.
Yeah. Do you think it's good when kids play against older kids? I know that I think it's great in a way, but at the same time, sometimes when kids lose or get beat up, it can hurt their
Yeah,
mindset.
I just had that
What are your
conversation with
thoughts?
somebody recently. I think it really depends, and I think it depends on the circumstance. I think there's something to be said for playing with your specific age group and really experiencing like what's the true gauge of where I'm at in comparison to my actual peers.
Hmm.
When you're constantly trying to have your kid play up and up and up just to say they're playing up, I don't know that necessarily helps them all the time because,
Yeah.
from a mature growth standpoint, they just might not be there yet.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
And it could hurt their self-esteem if they start losing and getting beaten up a little
Yep.
too early. So you got to be careful. I think that's a good answer. It depends.
it really does. And
Yeah.
the circumstance and the kid. I think it depends
Yeah.
on the kid and,
Yeah.
their toughness level, not
Yeah.
just physically, but mentally and
Yeah.
emotionally as well.
My son plays passing league at In Sports.
Yep.
They're mixed third and fourth graders. There's a big difference, let's just say, in football between third and fourth graders.
In most sports there is, right?
Yeah, right,
It's,
right.
like I said, from an emotional, physical, and a mental
Yeah,
toughness
yeah.
standpoint.
That one year makes a big.
Especially, I would say boys even more than girls, probably.
Yeah, yeah, totally. So, I'm gonna shift gears, get into professional life now, and there's a bunch to talk about here. So,
Yeah.
tell us about this. So, on your resume is your financial advisor. Is that your baby job? Is that your main job?
That's my main gig. That's what
All
I say
right.
is my big girl job.
That's the
when
big
people
girl.
ask
That's
me.
the big
Yeah.
girl job. So tell us about that. How did you get into that?
Yeah.
And what do you do there?
Yeah, so actually, it's just an ironic story. So I was in real estate, and I was also coaching at Southern. And as I mentioned before, I give back a ton to the community. So there was a local financial firm called Barnum Financial Group that was helping build a playground in Bridgeport. And UConn and Diana was a part of that. So she asked me to come and help out one day and help build this program. So I did. And I ended up meeting the managing director of the firm at the time. And he said, "What are you doing now?" And I told him, and he said, "Oh, I have a career I think you'd be great for."
By the way, what did you study at UConn?
I was a political science
Okay.
major. I always thought I'd go to law school
Okay.
or study something like that. But after, when you take a break from school for a little bit, like I did to play
Yeah.
overseas, it's like, even to study for some of these tests, like the real estate exam.
Oh yeah.
Your Series
LSAT,
7
yeah,
and everything else.
yeah.
It's kind of, you forget how to be a student pretty
Totally.
quickly.
Mm-hmm.
So I always give people credit that like go back and do school way after the fact.
Mhm.
But so I went in and interviewed with him, and I was kind of sold on, you get to help people, you get to meet different people, no cap on your income, flexible hours. It was
Yeah.
kind of like the same thing with real estate.
Yeah.
You really, I don't think I could ever work on 9 to 5 where I have to sit behind a desk. That's just me.
Yeah.
Now we need people who
You can
like
do that.
to do that
Yeah,
and
totally.
can do that.
Totally.
But it's not for everybody.
Nope.
And I'm always, I was big on, you never want it, for me, I never wanted something to feel like a job. I
Yeah.
wanted it to feel like a career.
Yeah.
And I think there's a major, major difference between that. Some people want jobs.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't. I really wanted a career that I
Sure.
could grow, and there was no ceiling for me.
Mm-hmm.
So I got into finance, and I was with Barnum for, like 12 years. And then,
What's your title at Barn? I'm just curious. What?
So at Barnum, I played 2 roles. I was a financial services representative, and then I was a managing sales director. So I, recruited and had this team with me. And I loved Barnum, and I loved my experience there. But, I hit a certain point where I really felt like all the things that I really fell in love with being an entrepreneur, I just didn't really have anymore. And I was going through some different changes in my life. And I ended up meeting this guy named Jay Maffei, who ran Maffei Financial Group. He was a UConn grad as well.
Mm-hmm. You guys stick together.
We do.
Blue
Yeah, we
Huskies.
bleed blue. So, I met with him, and he was like truly really an entrepreneur in all different ways that you look at that, So like he has what we call outside business activity in the financial world that you have to disclose. And he had like 10 OBAs, which some people would say, oh, that's too much, but all of them kind of tied in together. So he is an owner of a restaurant. He's opening up his own brewery. He runs a
Awesome.
financial firm.
Nice.
He owns all these different properties and businesses. And after meeting with him, I was like, this is exactly what I really wanted to be able to do is,
Yeah.
with obviously not losing the sight that my clients are really, really important and their financial future is really, really important. But I could do that and still do some other things and have my hand in a couple other things and grow the entrepreneurial flair that I have. And, being here and seeing your space, it's very similar to exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
So,
Cool.
So I made the jump and I moved over with him.
This was what year, roughly? This was
So
basketball's done. You're out of Europe. You're here. What year was this?
So 2008, I started it with Barnum.
With Barnum,
so
okay.
I was with them for, I think it was a little over 11 years. So what does that bring me to, like 2019? 2008. I think it was actually the end of 2018 is when I started with Jay.
Okay.
Over at my Financial Group. And so I did just that for like a year because I had to really learn. You learn a new firm when you're with one for so long and you get kind of, stuck in the trenches of the way they do things. You got to relearn a little bit. So I did that.
Yep.
And then actually when I was at Barnum, I really didn't have the time and the capacity to do other things. And one of the things that I really wanted to get back into was potentially coaching. And so before I even thought about interviewing for the job at Notre Dame, I talked to Jay and I said, hey, I got asked to see if I would be interested in this role, but before I even explore it, I want to make sure that you're okay with that. He was like, oh my gosh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I think you'd be great at it. You can definitely fit it in. And, I told him the schedule, like, I can make my own practice schedule. Obviously I have games, but the season really is like 3.5 months.
Exactly.
It's not like it's
not
all year long, although
right.
I'm kind of a psycho in that way where I'm very I'm thinking about it all the time. And of course, if I'm going to do something, I got to do it like at 1,000,000%.
100%. Yeah, exactly.
So,
it's
I think
a good disease to have.
Yeah. So, I'm getting up at like 6 a.m. to watch film, then go do my real job and then go to practice and then watch film for 2 hours at night, do my real job. So,
yeah,
it was a lot, but I made it work. So, so that's what kind of brought me to Notre Dame. And then, from there, one of the things that I always was really passionate about was, how do I tie that into health and wellness and fitness? So I actually opened up a CrossFit gym shortly after that.
Got that right here. That's next. Nice segue. Go into that.
So it was called SWAG CrossFit. It stands for Strength, Wellness, Agility, Growth, and Grit. And, built a really awesome community there. And I was able to kind of...
Where was this?
Shelton.
Shelton, okay.
Yep. So, did a lot of off-season training with our Notre Dame girls there. And actually it was perfect during COVID because we didn't have access to Notre Dame or other, a lot of other gyms, but I could hold, strength and conditioning at SWAG. And
yeah, that's all totally above board, right?
Correct.
No ball.
No ball there. Yep.
That's what we got to say. No ball.
Yeah, no basketball involved at all. And it at least it gave them something to have and go to.
Sure.
And at a time where I think the kids really needed that. Like, they missed normal, and so that was like an hour a couple days a week that I could give them that was a little normal and also help them get better at basketball because all that stuff ties in. So so I owned the gym and I coached there, and actually just recently got rid of that and kind of pushed that off to do different things because it just wasn't all working. So this past year, back in I want to say September, October, I had watched the last couple of years, the climate of AAU in the state of Connecticut, and really the development of youth basketball, especially from a girls basketball standpoint, had really started to go backwards, in my opinion. Like, I would send my kids away in March 3 years ago playing basketball a certain way, and then I get them back in the fall and I have to reteach and they have to relearn. It was almost like they were taking steps backwards.
Was it like the Wild West? What were they doing? Just not
as
organized? Or
I think AAU has become a little bit of a money play. I think there's a lot of programs out there.
Yeah, there are.
And I'm running into it now. It's like, which is kind of ridiculous. And it's our first year, so I'm just kind of rolling with the punches with this AAU program. But I mean, you have parents and kids out there that are like shopping AAU programs. It's like, well, this one's playing in this tournament, and this one has this coach, and I feel like this, and this coach said that. And at the end of the day, it's like, I personally, for me, it's not about the money.
Yeah.
It's about making sure these kids are getting developed the right way.
Yeah.
So I watch some of these AAU programs, for example, and some of these AAU programs have coaches that have successful high school programs, which is great. But their kids are all playing the same way.
Yeah.
Like, why do you want to go play for a program that's just going to teach you to jack up threes?
Yeah.
Or why are you going to go play for a program that has you practicing with 4 other teams at the same time? Like, you're spending a lot of money for your kid to be developed and have a certain type of exposure. You're not getting that.
Yeah.
So what we're trying to provide with our AAU program is really that, where we're going to be doing strength and conditioning once a week with them. They're getting 2 practices. We want to introduce nutrition planning. We have a formal partnership with the Connecticut Sun, and we want to do leadership workshops and platforms.
Yeah.
And
that's great.
So we're growing, and it's great, but there's still a lot of minutia, and it's part of me scratches my head. It's like, look at the results. If you're not results driven, like I look at my 4 seniors that are going to go play basketball after college, like there's a reason why my 4 kids are going. And if you look at other programs that their kids aren't, like,
yeah, and they've all committed, right? They're all playing.
They've all committed. They're all signing. They're all playing.
Where are they playing? You can give them a little shout out so if they're listening.
Yeah, so Neek is going to go play at Marquette. So she'll be in the Big East, which is great.
That's awesome.
Kayla is going to go play at LIU.
Awesome.
So she'll be close. She'll be playing against Sacred Heart. Taylor's going to play for Sacred Heart.
Awesome.
So she'll be right across the street
right
from
across
us.
the right, yeah.
And then Sarah's going to go play for Franklin Pierce. So
wow.
It's exciting, and I think that it's a testament to their hard work. And really, again, buying into.
And yours as well. And I don't. 4 going on to play.
It makes me a little sick sometimes when I hear coaches being like, "Oh, my kids, and I did this and I did that." Like, listen, I gave them a little bit of a roadmap and a template, and I definitely helped a little. But at the end of the day, it's not about me. It's not about the coach. It's about the kids, that you have a choice.
Yeah.
You can invest in your future the right way, and you can listen to the things that you're being taught and do all the little things, which they did, or you don't.
Yeah, no, I love it. And it's awesome that you have that, mentality, and the kids have to want it. Because you can be successful in high school, and the transition from 8th grade to high school is one thing. But now when you're going to start talking about the transition from high school to college, you're in a different sea with
and it's major. And I don't know if they're necessarily ready for that, but I feel like I've given them, like, I try to replicate what I experienced at UConn. So like, if you come to one of our practices, and I've been to other coaches' practices, and I won't drop names, but some practices there's a lot of standing around. Some practices there's a lot of talk. The coach talks for like long periods of time, and they go on. And like, our practice, we're moving the whole time.
Yeah.
If I'm stopping practice, it's just to give them a tidbit, correct, quick. Here's what you could have done,
and then move.
And then we move forward.
Yeah.
Like, it's, we watch a lot of film. We break down a lot of game film and do a lot of that stuff, which is all things you're going to have to do at the next level. We do strength and conditioning, injury prevention type stuff.
Sure.
So, I preach nutrition every single day.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to give them a taste of what they're going to have to do at the next level, so that it's not just, holy cow, I'm walking in and now I'm getting, blindsided with all this stuff.
So we scratched the surface, but let's hone in a little on the AAU program. Okay, so it's called Battlecon.
Battlecon.
Where'd you come up with that name? I think I know, but for our viewers.
Originally, again, I'm not big on having like things be 100% associated with my name, but Ashley Battle and I had conversations about potentially. Originally, it was going to be kind of like a basketball consulting company, which. I will eventually branch off like an arm of that to do consulting. And
that's cool.
And what that will eventually look like is, you have a young kid that wants to play at the next level. Well, okay, great. But there's a million other kids out there that want to play at the next level. Yeah. Where does your kid rank right now versus their peers throughout the state or throughout what we're seeing? And assess them and then say, okay, here's where they are. Here are the things that we think they need to focus on in order to get to where they want to get to. Very tailored, basically like somebody coming into your business and saying, how am I doing? How can I perform it better? That was our original thought. And we will eventually get to that. There's just so much stuff that we want to fix before that.
There's only so much time.
So, that was our original concept. And so I'm a big like comic book nerd, superhero nerd. So
okay. I wouldn't have guessed that. I like that.
Yeah. So Battlecon is a combination of her last name and my last name, but also like a play on Comic-Con.
Oh, I love it.
Whole superhero thing.
And so the program is in its infant stages. You said it was supported by the Sun?
Yep. So we are a formal partnership with the Connecticut Sun.
Okay.
So we'll have access to their facilities, their coaching staff, different workshops and seminars and things of that nature.
That's an amazing partnership. How many kids are in the program as of today?
So we have about 70 kids in our first
Okay.
year, which is
Is that a lot for an
that's a
AAU?
lot for a first year AAU
Okay.
program. It's a lot, yeah. So,
And what's that commitment look like? You start when, end when?
so it's a great question because I get a lot of I'm getting bombarded with emails lately,
Oh,
and
I'm
it's like,
sure.
when is this season? And it's AAU typically like the big AAU season is the summer. Some people will try to sell the winter or the spring AAU, and in my opinion, that doesn't really exist because there aren't any they're in season, so they're
Yeah.
not out there really
Yeah.
recruiting at AAU
They can't.
tournaments. Correct.
Right.
So AAU, and when I think of AAU, I think summer ball. So the first tournaments will start like the end of April, beginning of May. We'll start specifically for us probably like the second week of May, and we'll go through with certain teams through July.
And what's the age group for these?
Yeah, so
players?
our youngest team will be, it's fifth grade. So what do you call that? Like 11, 10,
Okay.
11U.
Okay.
That's kind of what they base it off
So
of.
basically, it's fifth through.
Like 11th grade.
Okay.
Right. And now we have this new thing with the whole reclassifying and
Yeah.
in sports. So sometimes you'll get seniors too that are doing AAU, but it's
Yeah.
typically up to junior year.
What do you say? And I have actually a pretty strong opinion on this. What do you say to these parents in general who, by nature these days are, very, they're micromanaging a lot, but a student who maybe thinks they should go to a prep school versus their only 4 years that they have to compete in high school athletics per the CIAC, rules. What do you say to that family that says, I want to go to prep school for 2 years, so I'm going to leave after my freshman or sophomore year? What do you say to that family?
I'm not, and this is not even me being biased, right? Because I could totally say like I don't get the whole prep school thing, and I think it's again it goes back to a certain fit for the type of kid. If your kid likes that vibe of like being away at a prep school and likes that experience, then it's probably a good fit for your kid. But having your kid like either go there first or go there after 2 years, the only way that I see that in terms of like leaving a CIA sanctioned is like if you play 4 years and you still don't have the offers or the looks that you want or you feel like you can get,
Yeah.
then go reclassify
Yeah,
for a year and go to prep school.
Yeah, I agree. I have the exact same mentality, and to go deeper, it's you have 4 years to do high school,
Right.
So you come in as a ninth grader, unless you play the game where you move or you do something like that. You have 4 years to enjoy high school and play.
Yep.
Enjoy your experience. You can certainly go to one of these prep schools after. When I went to Sacred Heart, I competed track and field, right? And I remember going to award dinners at the end of the year and seeing the hockey team. And I'm sitting next to this guy with a beard that's like, he's been growing it for 10 years. He's 27 years old, 28.
Yep.
And he's competing in high school,
Right.
in college against, a kid who's 20 years old. I mean,
Yeah.
it's just like.
And that's big in the hockey world.
That's
Like you see it
huge
all
in the
time,
hockey
but
world. But now I'm starting to see it with basketball, and you're seeing PG programs, and I just feel like kid has 4 years. Enjoy your 4 years. Because sometimes too, these coaches and these programs are just filling the kid's head that they're going to make it to the next level. But if you look at the stats, how many of them actually do?
Yeah, and it's again, I think it goes back to the experience. Like for me, prep schools typically they play their games at like 3:30, 4 o'clock in the afternoon. They don't typically get a huge crowd.
Right.
Their tournament, like if you
What's
were
the turn on?
like if you were deciding between coming to Notre Dame or Fairfield, right, or I don't know, potentially going to a prep school instead this year, and you came and you watched us play throughout the state tournament, play at Mohegan Sun in front of thousands of people.
Yeah, awesome.
Why would you not want that experience?
Right.
Now, and this is not, and I wholeheartedly mean this, and I really feel like again it's a fit, and some kids that's just what they want, and or to go away and
Fair enough,
whatever. But like I couldn't even tell you where or who won the prep school championship in the state of Connecticut this year.
Same.
But the CIAC state championships are promoted everywhere. Like most people know that Notre Dame of Fairfield won the state championship this year.
Oh yeah.
Like
Good point. Yeah,
it's
that's a
out
good
there,
point.
and so the experience and the vibe is very different. So if that's not what you want, and if you came to Mohegan Sun and you sat and watched us play and you don't vibe with that, then you probably should go to a prep school, but then just go there.
Yeah.
This whole switching back and forth, and to me is kind of bananas. Again, unless you're a senior and you want to reclass after your senior year to try to get some extra exposure, that's really, to me, the only time I see that.
So your daughter's not going to go to a prep school?
No.
Is that what I say?
No. And, unless unless she says to me,
Yeah,
right?
no, I
Like,
hear you.
like, Mom, I really love St.
This-
Luke's, and I
exactly,
want to go
yeah.
to St. Luke's, and like,
Yeah.
that's it. Now she doesn't even know what St. Luke's is,
Yeah.
and like, you know,
We'll shelter her.
yeah,
we
of
need her
course.
at Notre Dame.
Yeah. But yeah, you know, unless that's really, really what she wants, and
Yeah.
if I were to think that that was the right fit for her from a personality or academic standpoint,
Mhm.
but you know, I mean, like I have Rowan Houston who transferred in from
Yeah.
a prep school this last year, and I think our biggest concern really was she going to be challenged enough academically because she's a really bright student,
Yeah.
and I think that I'm always a big believer in like academics is what you make of it.
Sure.
Because I think that you're either a good student or you're not, and you're going to be a good
Yeah.
student no matter where you go. Now, can a curriculum can be tailored any sort of way to challenge a kid.
Sure.
So I think Notre Dame did a really great job
Oh
of
yeah.
tailoring her curriculum to challenge her. So
Yeah.
I think, you know, I think some parents get caught in like, you know, the prep school academia world is so much,
Yeah.
you know, more elite than
Yeah,
the regular. And I don't know if
I
I
don't
buy
think
that.
that's true either.
Yeah, I just
Yeah.
don't know that I buy that. But
Yeah. Is a kid smarter graduating from Harvard than a kid who graduated from UConn? I don't know.
I
Is
mean,
it-
I think, and like,
what's smarter? You
well,
know.
and what does that matter unless you're now, if you're going to law school or some of these professions where, yeah, it matters which undergrad you went to, then maybe. But like, I
Right.
see some kids go to Yale and they're like communication majors now, and they're real estate agents.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
You know, so it is what
Yeah.
it
They
is.
spent a lot of money to
Yeah.
for their $400 real estate license.
Yeah, exactly.
And they make more money with their $400 real
Correct.
estate license.
And they have less debt,
and less
right?
debt. That's
so
no debt.
yeah,
I mean, if you're still paying off your $400 credit card bill by the time you start the class and end,
right.
you know, there's something, you're not selling anything.
Correct.
Interesting. So your latest business venture,
Yep.
tell us about that.
Yeah, so it's a tasting lounge. Like I'm a big Connecticut person, right? So obviously, you know, some people will laugh, and like some of my teammates will say, like, "You're never gonna leave the Valley. You'll never leave Connecticut." And that's not necessarily true. I would love to go live somewhere warm someday,
someday.
way down the road.
Down
but,
the road.
I love Connecticut. I was born here. I was raised here. Obviously, I went to the University of Connecticut. I came back. I coach here now. I'm raising, you know, my daughter here now. So, you know, I just love what Connecticut is about. And I think there's a lot of great things about Connecticut. So one of those things is the different farms, you know, the seasonal fruit. You got the wine trail that's really popular here. A lot of great wines in Connecticut.
Oh, yeah.
The brewery scene has become huge.
Oh, it's huge.
Even the distillery scene is really, really grown. You know, so culturally, like obviously food and beverage is a big thing everywhere, but
Just got to get the taxes down a little.
yeah, well, hopefully we'll work on that, right? But so it was actually right before COVID. It was the summer before COVID, and I was actually at a winery, and I was saying to myself, man, this wine is so good, but it was all the way up at Jonathan Edwards, which is really, really far from where, obviously down here, it's probably a good hour or so ride. And I thought to myself, like, this is great wine, but wouldn't it be cool if there was a place where you could go out to eat or like socially where you could order a bottle of Connecticut wine? Because you can't. You go out to restaurants and it's all, you know, wine from Italy, you got
Yeah.
wine from Spain,
Yeah.
like, you know, all of this stuff. So wouldn't it be cool if there was one place where you could try a ton of stuff from Connecticut all in one place?
Wow.
So I had actually looked at a couple of spaces right before COVID, and they kind of fell through,
In
which
Shelton?
in the valley,
Valley.
Shelton, Ansonia area.
Okay.
And they fell through, which obviously was a blessing in disguise because like 7 months
Yeah.
later, COVID happened.
They're all closed.
So, you know, this past fall, I really started to revisit the concept and the idea. And so it's called Steady Habits because Connecticut is the land of steady habits, and that's their motto.
Yeah. Okay.
So it'll be Steady Habits Tasting Lounge. It's on Howe Ave in Shelton.
Okay.
And I really love the spot that we picked. It overlooks the river.
Okay.
It's down right across from the Shelton Slab where there's a lot of different events and cultural things that happen all year
And
long.
it's a small place. How big is
It's
it?
about 3,200 square feet.
Okay, so that's
Yeah,
fair
and,
enough.
you know, our occupancy will be like 100 people maximum.
Okay.
So it's a good size. It's not too big, but it's not small. So what we'll have there is every 6 to 8 weeks we're going to rotate. So we'll start with 4 different breweries, and we'll have 4 different beers from each of those breweries that we're going to highlight.
Okay.
We'll have 5 different wineries, and we'll have 4 or 5 different wines from those wineries, and then the same thing with the distilleries. And then, you know, we'll do specialty type cocktails every week where, like, let's just say it's a Sunday and, you know, it's brunch and it's Bloody Marys. You can do a vodka flight of different vodkas from throughout the state to decide which vodka you want to use in your Bloody Mary. So, and we'll be using, in terms of food and stuff, we'll be partnering with different farms.
That's awesome.
To do different
Keeping
charcuterie
it local.
boards. Everything will be everything in there will tie back to Connecticut in some way.
That's awesome. That is awesome. And are you partnered with some?
Yeah, so there's there's a bunch of other different partners. My brother being one of them, that are kind of on this group wise. So it's been fun. We should be open like the second week of May.
Okay.
Yeah, so it'll be pretty quick.
You're like a month away.
Yeah, and you got our colors, so we're green too.
Oh, you are?
Yeah, we like the green.
That's
so
awesome.
Yeah.
I never knew how much I would love green until
green's I love green.
It
Green
pops.
and purple are like my two favorite colors.
Well, I'm gonna get something purple in here.
Yeah.
For next time.
So it's exciting. I'm really excited about that. We're gonna, hopefully be doing a podcast out of there, athlete signings.
Awesome.
A bunch of different things. We'll do bingo nights and trivias
Yeah.
and stuff like that. So it'll be cool.
Are you planning? I'm a time blocker, right? So I've had people say, how can you kind of get this done and that done and sell and broker and teach and this, right? So I'm a time blocker. I know that Tuesdays I'm going to do this, Wednesdays I'm going to do this. How are you planning to be there? Like regularly? Are you taking on more of the investor side? What's your
So it'd be,
thought on that?
for me, it'll depend on like what time of year it is. Obviously during the basketball season, that'll be a little bit tougher for me to be there as consistently. In the summer, typically is, kind of my busy time for my financial world because I have a lot of snowbirds that go down to Florida that are now back up here. So I do a lot of my annual reviews with them. But my thought is to kind of do a lot of them there. So, have them in and, you have their here, try a bottle of Prosecco and
Sure.
we're going to do our annual review. So I'll do a lot of that stuff out of there.
Business meetings out of there.
Exactly. So I'll do a lot of that out of there.
What's the setup look like? Is it like a square? Give us a little insider that only these people will know who are watching. Is it like a square bar with booths or high top tables?
So it's like an L-shaped bar.
Okay.
Or Z actually, because it does come this way a little bit.
Okay.
It's really like definitely an upscale farmhouse loungy feel. So there'll be two areas, one that has like a fireplace with a couch, and two chairs and coffee table like this, where we'll have like checkers and chess and stuff like that, where you can come.
Maybe I could meet agents there when I'm
absolutely
trying
do
to
that.
hire them.
Yeah,
love
and we'll do a bourbon flight if they're into bourbon.
Perfect.
And you can
Get them drunk and then say, just sign here. Just sign right here.
No one's getting drunk. Don't say that.
Buzzed.
It's a tasting lounge.
Have a taste and then sign here.
There'll be another area with some couches and a big TV there.
Yep.
And then the rest will be like really nice, like farm table. We have a big long farm table in the middle there where you can do like a bigger event.
Cool.
Yeah, so it'll be pretty upscale. Like we're not. And well, by the way, the latest will be open is 10 o'clock. So it's really purely like
smart
winery, brewery type of, like we don't want people in there till 1 a.m. and things get crazy.
Yeah.
Really truly is like where, we want people to come in and maybe they try a flight of wine, they have a bottle, and then they go to dinner down the street at Amici's or somewhere else in Shelton or wherever. So, that's kind of
music?
Yeah, so more like acoustic type stuff. So
live?
Not like live bands. I mean, we'll have, we have a pretty cool AV system that we just set up. So we'll be doing that. And, my thought will be on different days of the week on the TVs, we'll have like, either Friends or Seinfeld going on one and maybe the Bronx Tale movie on the other.
Cool.
So that kind of vibe.
The throwbacks are great. They never get old. That's
Yeah.
like I have the throwbacks on the wall over there.
Yeah.
The classics.
Yeah, it's good stuff.
Really good stuff. So that's awesome. We'll be looking for that grand opening.
Yep.
Make sure you get it to me as I mentioned earlier. We'll get it out. Try to get as
absolutely.
many people as possible to support. So how would you say time is obviously as in business you learn as you get older. Not that you and I are old. Did you hit 40 yet?
Not yet.
You're close though.
Yeah.
Right. So when I hit 40 is when I realized that time is literally your most precious commodity. And I start my mornings now by watching reels. And I actually like listening to Shaquille O'Neal and like other people who have a lot, obviously, more money and a lot more experience. And you just learn how precious time is. So, and you mentioned, you had to maybe cut back a little on the CrossFit, right? Because you're going to start or combine that with something else. What do you say to people who are, they think there's not enough hours in the day to accomplish what they want? What would you say to them to inspire them that they can do more?
I think that what I've learned as I've gotten older is, you know, I've heard people say like work smarter, not harder.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of say like let's just do both. Let's work smarter and harder at the same time. And I think that if you're really strategic about your time and you surround yourself with people in your different ventures that have different strengths than you do, right? So, you know, my friend Stacy, for example, who's a part of Battlecon, she's also a part of this tasting lounge.
Yeah, awesome.
She's really good at some of the stuff that I'm really bad at. Like I'm not a big spreadsheet person.
Same.
I'm just not good at that type of stuff.
Yeah.
She's really, really great at all the detail stuff. So what do? Well, I have her involved in a lot of my different ventures because you have to surround yourself with people that aren't good. Like I'm an idea person.
Yeah.
I'm a people person.
Yeah.
You know, I can sell. I like that. Like I like throwing different things out there. Where I'm not good is like if you tell me I have to sit in a 6-hour meeting, my head will explode.
Yeah.
But again, outside of that piece and surrounding yourself with people that have strengths where you have weaknesses is being really intentional with your time.
Mm-hmm.
Like I think some people are, even when they're at work or they're at their 9 to 5, how many hours are they really working there? Like I've seen people go into work in like
on Facebook.
It's solitaire for 45 minutes here and solitaire for 45 minutes here.
Yeah.
I'm taking an hour and a half lunch break, right? And I'm going to leave and go get coffee and that takes 35 minutes. Most days I don't find myself doing that. I find myself very intentional with how I do things. So if I'm going to go get coffee in the morning before yoga, because I got into yoga a year ago and I really love hot yoga, I'll go to Starbucks, but I'll bring my computer. And while I'm sitting there drinking my coffee, I'm also multitasking, or I'm on the phone, or if I'm in the car and I got to drive to Rhode Island to see a client, I have a list on a piece of paper of 4 or 5 things that I need to do on the phone at the same time. So I think when you're super intentional with your time and your time blocks, you can usually do a lot more than you think. And you know, I was a big Kobe fan.
Ditto.
So I remember I used to listen to a lot of his stuff on Mamba mentality and
the Mamba mentality. How
do you increase the hours of your day, right? So he used to now. I don't get up at 3 a.m. and go work out for 4 hours and then come home. And obviously he was in a different profession.
Oh, yeah.
But I think what I learned from him is to lengthen the day a little bit, especially in blocks. So like Monday through Thursday, I work from probably like 7:30 in the morning until 10 o'clock at night. And then on Friday, I dial that back a little bit. And, you know, I work Saturday and Sunday, but maybe I work 9 to 12. Or most people will say, you know, Friday hits, I'm not doing any work on Saturdays.
Right.
And I'm like, well, I'm going to work 6 hours on the weekend because it's 6 hours I can allocate differently here. So I think that if you're really smart about that and you surround yourself with the right people, you can be like, I'm really efficient at what I really like doing. Where I'm not efficient is when I have to do stuff I don't like doing.
So it's not working if you love it.
Correct. Right. Now I can do, in the amount of time it takes me to do something that I love is probably a third of the time it takes me to do something I don't love.
Yeah.
Right? So
Mr. Cipriano at Notre Dame threw an Excel sheet in front of me, and you could ask him about this, and I started to twitch. He said, could you know, we had to do the open house signs or the name tags for open house, and I think I'm undiagnosed ADD, ADHD, everything, right? I see a little bit of that in people who are growers who can multitask, right? But I like freeze. I don't want to, and same thing here. My admins do when I'm like, hey, well, give me the pending report for next week. If I like have to figure it out myself, I start to twitch and
see. And I would argue that we're all ADHD a little bit on things that we don't love doing.
Yeah, good point.
Right, because it's like if you get forced into this box of like something you're not naturally good at, your head wants to explode, and that doesn't matter. That's everybody.
Yeah.
You know, because if I ask some people to come up with a really cool concept or idea, well, what do you mean? Like, give me more details on it. And I'm like, what do you need more? So it's the opposite, and I think it works both ways. But when anyone says you don't have enough time to do something, they're just not being creative enough, and that means that you're doing stuff that you probably shouldn't be doing. Yeah. That's just my opinion there, you know?
Yeah, and you hit it, the Mamba mentality, you know, work, just work, outwork everyone. Don't
work harder and smarter.
Yeah, if everybody says I'm the hardest worker in the room, you're going to have some successful people, and, you know, you're only as good as the people around you. If you listen to my last podcast with Coach Palladino, he really hit that home. You're only as good as the people around you. Hire people smarter than you.
Yeah.
Sounds like you're partnering with the right people and the right ventures, which allows you to do what you love, right?
Yep.
With coaching and helping kids get to that next level and inspire them. And That certainly is it's awesome and great to see from the back. On social media, you're very relevant. What role has social media played in your businesses, basketball, through Notre Dame or AAU, your financial world? How has social media impacted what you do?
Yeah, social media is an interesting one, and I have definitely over the last, especially like the last 4 or 5 years since I got into coaching and doing some other things, is again, I'm very intentional with social media.
Mhm.
So if you go through my social media or you follow me, you're not going to see me talk about a lot of things that raise a ton of opinions,
Mhm.
right? Because
Smart.
yeah,
Same here.
you're never gonna agree with everybody on everything, and
Yeah.
I kind of try to play Switzerland in a lot of different ways. And people who know me know how I feel about certain things, and
Yeah.
that's really where you
I
should
like
keep
that.
it.
Play Switzerland.
You gotta on social media,
I-
because
Agreed.
and I'm always big on. There's always something on both sides that you can take away either in a positive or a negative light, like
Mhm.
I talked about earlier.
Yeah.
But I think what social media has done is just that, like exactly what I just said, and I'm intentional about what I post and when I post it, and I try not to post a lot of really super personal stuff because I just don't think that's the place for it. um, I post a lot about my daughter because it's really important to me.
Love it.
I'll post about basketball because it's really important.
Mhm.
The finance stuff is interesting because it's very highly regulated, so you won't see me post a lot about
Yeah.
that.
Mhm.
But I think social media has really helped me expand my voice and expand that audience that I
Yeah.
want to try to get to. And I think it's an important part of what we do. Obviously, you could market just basically off social media
Totally. You
now,
can build a brand quickly.
or you can destroy a
Or-
brand really quickly.
Yeah.
So,
Mhm.
I try to be really careful about that. I'm also very careful about who I associate with on social media. And what I mean by that is, who do you follow?
Yeah. Who are
What?
you liking?
Yeah, and I try not to go through there because I think social media in a lot of ways, depending on who you're following and what you're reading, can be a little toxic too, and
Mhm.
you catch yourself like comparing or like, oh, this
Mhm.
person's doing that,
Yeah.
and so much of it is for show.
So much.
Like
Yeah.
even with basketball, like I see some people and trainers are posting these videos of, like, for example, like have this kid dribbling around a cone like 1,000 times and doing
Mhm.
like this up and under and
Yeah.
through the middle, and like they think that they're posting something really great,
Mhm.
and in a lot of ways they're getting more clients because parents aren't smart enough to see, like, all of that was great, but like when are you ever going to dribble through
Yeah. Yeah.
like that
Real
in a game?
life.
Like, how is that so I look at it and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is great. Like, this guy doesn't even know what he's doing. They should totally come play for us. So you could see it both ways. So again, I try to be really intentional with my content.
Yeah.
um I try not to post anything like I would never,
So
like,
you
I'm
didn't post about Will Smith
no,
slapping our
I did
friend?
not.
Oh,
No,
smart.
and I don't post political stuff either, and
Smart. If I
or
do, it's a
religious
joke.
stuff. Like, I
Yeah.
just think there's certain topics that you just shouldn't.
Agreed.
You just should just keep to yourself.
Yeah.
And I learned that a long time ago. So
Yeah.
I try to. And listen, are there some things that fire me up that I see and that I do have strong opinions on? Of
Yeah,
course,
absolutely.
but there's a time and place for that stuff. And I
Yeah.
think that, some people get caught up in that. And I try to just use social media in a really positive
Use
way.
it in a positive way.
Yep.
Yeah, I tell my agents, like, think about, if you want to post about who you voted for the president, like, just know that no matter what you post, 50% of the people
Correct.
are not going to agree with you. Not, so it doesn't matter if your reasoning is right or wrong or
Yeah.
indifferent.
Well,
50% of the people are not going
and
to.
even from an employment standpoint, like I'm sure I would have to imagine, like, right now we're hiring for the tasting lounge.
Mhm.
So I have my brother on that piece because he's a cop and he's used to like investigating. He finds
Sure.
it fun, right?
Yeah.
So, but one of the things that we do is we go through your social media.
Yeah.
So
First thing.
correct. Like, so from an employment standpoint, you have to be really smart. And I tell my kids this, like, that I coach, like, don't post anything stupid on social media because
Oh, the kids, they
it's
don't.
gonna come back to haunt you.
They.
And unfortunately, once it's out there, and
It's
you're
out
going to be
there.
constantly judged. So,
Yeah.
it goes for all different factors in terms of the content that you put out there.
Yeah. Yeah. Maria, who would you say are your biggest role models and influencers, whether it's one person or a few on your life? Not just coaching, but just in general of who you've become as a person.
Oh, that's a long, long list. Obviously my parents are a huge influence. My grandparents, huge influence. I have some friends that are just huge influences. Coaches that I've had before, teachers. Again, I'm just really big. I think that I've evolved a lot as a human being. I've evolved a lot as a mom. I've evolved a lot as a coach and as a student of the game, and as a business professional. And I think that for me personally, my opinion is if you can target one or two people that have been your entire influence, your entire life, you probably haven't grown to the amount that you should want to. Like,
Good
you
point.
should be influenced by
A lot of people.
tons of people.
Mm-hmm.
And again, like I spoke about earlier, in both a positive way and a negative way. Like, I think about my 8th grade coach, Charlie Stockmull.
Mm-hmm.
This guy, no matter what time of the day it was, if I called him up and I wanted to get shots up at the gym, he would feed me the ball for 4 hours, no questions asked.
Well,
So I think I learned some of that selflessness of like helping a kid. So anytime my daughter says to me, "Mommy, I want to go shoot,"
mm-hmm.
even if I'm exhausted, right? Because I have 100 jobs and
Yeah.
the days get long. Okay, fine, let's go.
Mm-hmm.
So I learned that from him. I learned, from Coach Frager, some of the X's and O's, and I use some of his organizational stuff and the way that he presents himself both professionally and personally. I've learned from cousins. I've learned from my brother. So I try to just be this huge culmination of experiences. Like, I've learned from my kids, right? Like my players.
Mm-hmm.
Like I had a player last year, Mac Stone. Mac.
Of course.
I mean, probably like quintessential leader.
Yeah.
Right? Like one of those kids that, like, as a coach, you'll always remember because she just
great athlete. I didn't even know
always-
she played I know she was a
great at
great
basketball
softball.
too.
Was a great
Yeah,
basketball
she's
player.
doing
Just
great
as good.
down at Barry University
Yeah.
in Florida.
Yeah.
Starting shortstop as a
Mm-hmm.
freshman down there
Yeah,
now. But
she's a talent.
I mean, one of the like a kid like her, from a leadership standpoint, like she's one of those kids where you're like, I hope my daughter is that type of kid someday. Like, always early, always does the right thing, gets good grades. Every
Yeah.
teacher likes her
Mm-hmm.
because she does things the right way. So, I learned stuff from her, and I learned stuff from Neek and Kayla and Sarah and Tay and, all these kids. You learn constantly. And I think you have to embrace that as a human, to know that, like, you need other influencers constantly to help you grow.
If you could go back and do anything different in your life, either whether it's a specific situation or generally speaking, what would you have done differently in your life?
Somebody asked me that once recently, and I mean, if there's little things here or there where you're like, like I always say, like, man, I wish I got more shots up as a kid, or I wish I worked even harder than I did, or I could get into that constantly with everything, and I think a lot of that comes from I'm never satisfied and I always want to grow.
Mm-hmm.
So when I look back, I just always wish I did more. But would I change anything? Not necessarily. I mean, I am who I am today because of all the decisions that I made, good or bad, throughout my entire life.
Mm-hmm.
They've molded me into who I am, and moving forward, I'm just going to continue to do that. If you ask me that 10 years from now, I'll probably say the same thing. I wish I would have done this harder or stronger or whatever. Yeah. But it's gotten me to where I am, and I'm not content because it's just not my personality, but I am genuinely happy with my path and, where it's taken me to this day. And yes, there's always adversity. I'm opening up a new business, and who the heck knows how that's going to go at first. I think it's going to be great, but I'm biased.
Yeah, of course.
So I think that, you just got to roll with the punches there.
Yeah. Well, I greatly appreciate you, as busy as you are. You're a great role model for our kids at Notre Dame. Truly an inspiration. You're a serial entrepreneur. Really appreciate you coming on the show today. Know that you're always going to have the support of myself, Better Homes and Gardens Real Estate, and any way we can support any of your business ventures, whether it's anything here at the building, just feel free to reach out to me, and really, really appreciate you coming on the show.
I appreciate you having me on. This was fun.
Yeah,
Anytime.
good.
Yeah.
We'll do it again. So the Expect Better podcast, subscribe, tune in next time.